Greetings, one and all, and welcome to Course Corrections. In this installment, let's take a look at Jeepers Creepers. It's spooky month, so why not dive into some horror, right? So, a bit of backstory here. I watched this film for the first time a few years ago, and I genuinely thought that it was a spoof on horror movies. I was laughing most of the way through it. It was only a few days later when I spoke to the coworker who recommended it to me that I found out I was supposed to take it seriously. Ouch. I shouldn't have found what was supposed to be a scary movie funny. So let's have a look and see what we can do to improve on its concept. Fair warning, I'm going to have to use stills instead of footage in this video, as this site is on a rampage with bogus copyright claims. So I apologize in advance. I'm also aware that this movie is based on a comic. However, I haven't read it, and as such, I'll be treating this as a standalone feature. If the film is true to the source material, then this can be applied to it as well. Now, let's get into the plot. We begin with siblings Trish and Derry on their way home from college for spring break. Strangely, Trish tells Derry that he just blew through a stop sign, despite being on a highway in the middle of nowhere. We never see this stop sign, so she might have just been giving him crap for no reason, but then again, there sometimes are stop signs on long roads for no reason whatsoever. The two banter back and forth, coming up with crude insults based on the license plates of vehicles they've seen on their journey, which does also help to sell that this has been a long road trip. But something I thought was amusing is that the RV they pass turns off the highway just as a more insidious vehicle enters the scene. No, really, I noticed this the first time I watched this movie with a friend. The RV just decided to turn down this random road, as we'll come to find out the Creeper's truck comes barreling down the highway. Was this a coincidence, or do they know something we don't? The Creeper's truck tailgates the youths, seemingly trying to get them to run off the road, before eventually passing them and speeding off down the road. Another detail that the movie calls attention to is that this vehicle has a vanity plate. It reads as BEATNGU. We're led to believe at first that this is supposed to be read as beating you, but is actually supposed to be interpreted as be eating you. So was the Creeper just spending his time at the DMV getting this plate? Seriously, that mental image alone gave me laughs for nearly 10 minutes. The siblings then discuss a story of Kenny and Darla, who apparently died on this highway, though it was 100 miles from where they are now. Derry dismisses the story as fiction, but Trish oddly declares that she thought this would be the highway that she would die on. Beg pardon? If you have or had such an aversion to this road, then why are you on it? Would you not make your brother take the interstate or something? There are other ways around this stretch of road. Why would you even connect yourself to this road to begin with? We then have a short sequence consisting of little more than establishing dialogue between the siblings, but strangely the sun is setting in this shot, whereas in the next scene it's still around midday. Now, the two didn't stop for the night or anything, so this must just be a case of an oversight on the director's part. It's odd though that Trish forces the subject to linger on their mom for so long though. We never see this woman, and she has no connection to the events of this film, so either this was set up with no payoff, a cut plot line, or simple filler. But the pair then see the van from before, now with the driver tossing suspiciously human-sized objects wrapped in sheets and stained in red down a pipe at an abandoned church. Now, I'm no detective, but that seems just a tad bit off, don't you agree? The Creeper notices them watching, however, and gives chase. Trish tries to use Derry's cell phone to call the cops, but its battery is too low to make a call. This movie does take place in decades past, but hey, You won't have to worry about a cracked screen with this thing. The creeper manages to catch up to them, ramming their vehicle several times. At one point, it actually pulls up alongside the duo, and honestly, Derry's best move would have been to slam on his brakes. At the speed the creeper was going, he'd have flown past them, and he could have bought them some time while the creeper has to turn around. Eventually, the creeper runs them off the road though, and then continues off to parts unknown for mysterious purposes. Why it just lets them off the hook isn't confirmed, but it's implied that it was gauging both of their levels of fear for reasons we'll get into in a bit. Put a pin in that. As the two do what they can to patch up the car, they debate on whether they should go on to find a place to call the cops, or to go back and see if anyone who was dumped down that pipe is still alive. Trish argues for the former point, while Derry makes his case for the latter. Derry, I get that you want to do the right thing, but even if this was just a normal murderer, you have no weapons on you. Bad idea, always keep something in your car just to be safe. If you get caught, then it's donezo for you two. Trish clearly has the right of it. Make for the next town and use a phone there. Going back only puts you in danger, and then nobody will be left to try and get help. Do not go back there. If you in real life are in a situation anything like this, go get help. Going back is a genuinely terrible idea. Don't do it. No matter what your conscience tells you.
Not gonna happen! No, not gonna happen!
But Derry is able to persuade his sister, and the two turn around to go back to the church. Crows are everywhere around it for some reason. You'd think that if this was some supernatural death machine, they'd want to avoid it as well. Crows aren't stupid. They're some of the smartest things out there. Derry and Trish putz around the pipe, and Trish gets out of the car despite claiming fervently just a minute ago that she would do no such thing. I'll give this as characterization for her, showing that she does care about her brother. But Derry thinks that he can see something at the other end of the pipe, and has Trish hold his ankles so that he can be maybe 6 feet closer to the end of the pipe? What?
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
What did you think this would accomplish? With the length of that pipe, that's not going to make your visibility any better. He panics at the sight of some rats near him though, and thrashes about like a buffoon, causing Trish to lose her grip, sending him sliding down the pipe, landing heavily at the bottom. Really? It's just some rats. I had one as a pet when I was a kid, and a bunch of the teachers at the school my mom taught at had them in the classrooms. They aren't going to maul you. Trish is rightfully alarmed, and while looking for a way out, Derry discovers one of the people wrapped up from before is still alive, though the man expires shortly afterwards. He's had his abdomen roughly stitched up with rope, and I suspect that the trauma and blood loss from a wound that size would have ended him long before now. But how did he get all the way over here from where the pipe ended? He's a good 20 feet or so from where Derry landed. In his condition, and restrained as he was, there's no way he would have crawled over here. While Derry continues looking for a way out, Trish moves off to keep watch to see if the van from before returns, or to flag down anyone else for help. As she does this, Derry discovers that this basement has had dozens of bodies preserved and affixed to the walls and ceiling, all stitched together from various corpses. One even bears the school ring of Darla, the girl from the story the two mentioned earlier. This confirms that this was her ultimate fate. I don't know why she was allowed to keep the ring when every other article of clothing was removed from the other bodies, but I guess it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Trish, in the meantime, has been doing an abysmal job of keeping lookout. She proceeds to watch only one direction of the road in the most casual and relaxed way possible, as though there wasn't someone who just ran you off the road after you saw him dumping bodies. We have a fake freakout where a similar looking truck passes by, getting all too close before Trish notices it, and she struggles to get the car into gear. From here on out, the car will have selective problems, working fine every time until the plot demands that it shouldn't. Now, I know car problems can be finicky, but this is just blatant use of it being a problem only when the script wants to build tension. At every other time, there's no problem with it whatsoever. I'd also like to point out that Trish was going to just bail and leave Derry behind. So much for that previous concern, I guess. Speaking of Derry, however, he returns, having found a way out of the basement, and jump scares Trish, leaning on the window suddenly. I get that he's supposed to look scared here, but he looks more deranged than frightened. Trish manages to get the car working again, and the two hit the road, with Derry taking quite some time before he can speak again. And even then, it's only ramblings about the story of Darla that they were talking about before. Eventually, they make it to a gas station and diner, and they see the truck from before pass by, clearly on its way back to the church. They hasten inside, and everyone inside thoroughly demonstrates how normal people don't act. All of them just turn and squint at Trish after she says that they need help and that they need to call the police. Seriously, the first time I saw this movie, I thought that these people were in on what was happening, but no, they're just really weird for no reason at all. Even the waitress completely disregards them. What? If two college kids show up in your establishment, one looking like he's been dragged through the undergrowth with a 1,000-yard stare and telling you that the authorities need to be contacted, this is not the reaction you should have. But oddly enough, the phone rings and everyone acts like the kids should answer it. One guy even asks, "Are you gonna get that?" Have you considered, just for a brief moment, that if the phone rings in a place of business, that it might be for the business itself? Like, what now? Why would some random person be calling someone in the diner and not the diner itself? Did nobody else think of this, or is it just me? But a woman on the other end speaks to the siblings, giving cryptic remarks like, "Have you seen the cats yet?" and knowing their names. She also reports that she too knows about the bodies in the basement, and if they hear the song Jeepers Creepers, that they need to run. Another thing this mysterious woman reports before Derry hangs up on her is that if this thing catches the scent of something it likes, then it won't stop hunting it. Remember the thing I mentioned before about the creeper gauging their fear responses by trying to drive them off the road? Well, this is it. How exactly would it be smelling them in this scenario, though? They're moving down the highway at high speeds in separate vehicles. I doubt even a dog would be smelling much of anything through that, much less the fear that someone's putting off. But as night settles in, the cops arrive and take statements from Derry and Trish, and they're understandably skeptical of what they've heard. But Trish too is skeptical despite having seen Derry's reaction. Really? So I suppose this is normal behavior for him. It didn't seem that way earlier. It's obvious that he's telling the truth. But the crappy waitress from before informs them that someone broke into their car and was smelling Derry's laundry that he was taking back home to be washed. Ew. Now, the cops had radioed for someone to move out and inspect the church, but now they see a dusty handprint on the car door, which starts to blow away as they look at it. The cops then decide to give the two an escort across county lines, and Derry points out how it would be impossible for the creeper to get back to the church and then to the diner again, even with his souped-up truck. At the same time, though, the cops get a call that the church has gone up in flames. Derry tries to turn on the radio, but picks up a cover of the song Jeepers Creepers. The cops have apparently also sent the skin sample back and already had it analyzed. Somehow. It was apparently dead skin. Skin dead for so long that it was just powder. But the signal is then cut, and something lands on the roof of the cop car. The woman leans out to see what just happened, and is dragged out through the window. The male cop then has his head pulled up through the roof of the car, and the creeper cuts it off with an axe. A few questions. First, the roof of the cop car is bent outwards, implying that the guy's head punched through it instead of the creeper jabbing his hand through it to grab him. Second, why does the creeper have an axe? Where was he keeping it? It never shows up again, and the creeper is strong enough to just tear a head off, so what was the point of this thing? It's style over substance. The cop's head then lands on Trish and Derry's car, and they slam on their brakes as the cop car does the same. Now with the creeper somehow driving it. Trish gets out and calls over to the cops, but Derry discovers blood from where the head had struck the car, letting him know what happened. As the door of the cop car opens, Trish bolts back into the driver's seat of her car, but for no discernible reason, elects to watch the creeper get out of the cop car and start eating the tongue of the decapitated cop. The creeper also takes the time to whistle the tune of Jeepers Creepers. Come on now, this thing is supposed to be scary. Whistling isn't scary, especially from a monster that's supposed to instill terror. Once again, the car demonstrates its inconsistent malfunctions, as it takes Trish several attempts to get it in gear. The creeper pays them no mind, however, instead taking time to put the cops' bodies in its truck. There's even a comically long section after it closes the door of the truck, where we have nothing but a black screen, only for the door to open again as the creeper throws the severed head in as well. Comedy clashes with horror. You can't be simultaneously afraid and amused. Some people might laugh when they're scared, but that isn't a laugh of humor. That's their brain not knowing how to respond. Don't put funny moments in a scene where I'm supposed to feel dread. But Trish is speeding off down the road, and Derry urges her to slow down before she causes them to wreck. Instead, she brings the car to a screeching halt. Trish, slow down doesn't mean stop. Keep going, obviously, but don't wreck the car by going too fast. They then pull over into one of those old houses that's way away from everything. Seriously, every time I see a house like this, I have to question where they get their groceries, or anything else for that matter. The old lady that lives there demands to know who they are, and she has tons and tons of cats around. She's probably infected with Toxoplasma gondii, and no, that's not referring to the historical figure. Long story short, it's a single-celled parasite that needs to get into a cat's digestive system to reproduce, so it makes things that it infects, like the scent of cat urine. The more you know. Their exchange, though, is cut off by the creeper showing up, standing in the woman's field in front of the scarecrow. I swear the movie uses every stock cat sound effect ever recorded in rapid succession here. No, really. There are at least 6 or 7 sounds that go off multiple times back to back to make it seem like the cats are scared. The old lady confronts the creeper with a double-barreled shotgun, but it leaps through the roof of the house. If it wasn't apparent that this thing isn't human before, it definitely should be now. But the lady runs into the house to re-engage the creeper, and we hear another 2 shotgun blasts before everything goes silent once more. The lady then reappears on the porch door, but it's soon revealed that the creeper is holding her up by the shoulder. Interestingly, we can hear her gasping as she's thrown away, meaning that she might not have died. That's more mercy than the cops got. Trish and Derry book it back into the car, which has no problems reversing back onto the road as the creeper walks after them. The car then decides that it doesn't want to shift to drive. But really, why wouldn't you just then reverse down the road away from this thing? Anything is better than just sitting there. But thankfully, Derry uses his single brain cell and tells Trish to gun it in reverse as the creeper jumps onto the hood, and it performs every mall ninja's dream of backflipping off of the car as it accelerates away. But remember what I said about comedy killing fear?
It can't get worse, right? It can and it will, and here it is.
Well, the scene continues with the mall ninja antics, as Trish tries to run the creeper over twice, and each time it runs across the roof of the car. I actually burst out laughing at this point, fully convinced that this was a spoof. I mean, really, who greenlit this? It's great comedy, but it wasn't until later that I found out that this film is meant to be horror, not a spoof. This is completely counter to that objective. Trish finally succeeds in hitting the creeper on her third attempt, and the car shows no signs of trouble shifting gears now. Trish then proceeds to run over its inert form 3 times, further cementing the ridiculous nature of this scene. The beast then sprouts a wing and tries to take off, but it would seem as though its other wing is damaged. Trish runs it over for a 4th time as they speed off. So the two then make their way to the county police office, where Trish calls their mother, letting her know where they are. While she's on the phone, Derry looks over at the notice board and observes that there are several missing persons posters, one of which depicts a man who looks similar to the one he found in the creeper's lair. This poster also contains a typo, missing the space between that and this. Also, what's this Wunderhund it mentions? I apologize if I mispronounced that, but it seems to be Danish for Wonderhound. It's then that a woman by the name of Giselle Gay Hartman enters, looking for the siblings. As it turns out, it was she who contacted them at the diner, and she has some sort of psychic ability, seeing all of this in her dreams, and thus she knew that the two would be here. She then informs them that every 23 years, for 23 days, the creeper awakens to feed. It consumes parts of various people to replenish itself, and seems to select individuals based on something that it smells in them. But while she's telling them this, the creeper arrives at the police station in its truck, and limps around to the back of the building. Limping in an exaggerated manner, as its left foot came off after Trish ran it over. Honestly, the limp made me cackle. It's so cartoonish from this thing that the film's hyping up to be scary. Also, how did it get back to its truck if it was so injured? Where was it keeping its truck? Where has it been going during this whole intervening time? There are a lot of unanswered questions here. But then the power goes out, and we never find out why that is. The creeper never did anything to the electrical system, at least not that we ever find any evidence of, so this just seems to occur on its own. One of the cops goes down to check on the inmates, and the first several groggily respond, apparently blissfully unaware of what's happening just a few feet from them. How this is, I can only question. The creeper has broken into the detention center, pulled the bars of one of the cells out so that it can begin eating one of the inmates, right in front of all the others. Even if they couldn't see what was happening, they could surely hear it, and breaking in like this and consuming a living human wouldn't be a quiet endeavor. The officer shoots at the creature, but the bullets don't seem to faze it in the slightest. The police chief then tries to get Trish and Derry into a separate room, but Giselle insists that the creeper finds them in the station. She then begins to sing the song Jeepers Creepers. And there it is, folks. She said the name of the movie. Then she claims that it will take one of them and play the song as it mutilates them. But an officer walkies the chief, telling him that the thing is coming up the back stairs. And as all the cops of the station move off, Giselle tries to get the siblings away. But instead of going out of the front door and to their vehicles, which would get them away from the creeper much faster than any other means they possess, she instead takes them farther into the station.
Hey yo, what the?
What? Why? You said yourself in your dreams that the creeper finds them hiding in a room. Why would you keep them in a place with rooms? Why wouldn't Trish and Derry just get back to their car and book it out of there? But this place has an exorbitantly large number of police officers here. No, really, there are dozens of them just chilling here. all in this backwater town. I might be able to buy it if this was in a major city, but this is the middle of nowhere. How and why are there this many cops just hanging around here? The creeper then punches a hole through one of the cops, all while his comrades just stand there and watch this go down. Some camaraderie there, am I right? But Giselle, Trish, and Derry are stopped by a pair of locked doors. Is this supposed to be an emergency exit? Aren't those supposed to always be unlocked from the inside? Kind of a bad system if the emergency exit locks itself in an emergency. Derry then questions which of them will be taken by the creeper, and Giselle looks at Trish. Derry then pressures her to know if her dreams are ever wrong, but they're cut off by the creeper appearing at the far end of the hall. As Trish and Derry run up the stairs, the creeper crawls along the wall like it's wide Putin or something, and Giselle quietly prays. The creeper smells her, but leaves, apparently not finding her suitable. Did Giselle think that it would be distracted by her long enough for the two to get away? But Derry and Trish end up in the interrogation chamber, and the creeper watches them through the one-way mirror. Breaking through the glass, it takes hold of both of the siblings, smelling each of them in turn to figure out which of them it wants. Contrary to what was implied by Giselle a minute ago, the creeper throws Trish aside and keeps Derry. Several of the cops break in and aim their guns at the creeper, who strangely holds Derry in front of itself like he's a hostage. The structures on the back of the creeper's head unfurl, making it appear even more alien and monstrous than it already did. The beast screeches at the cops, but Trish offers herself in Derry's place. To his credit, Derry does object to this. The creeper even seems to consider the offer for a moment, but alas, it's futile. The creeper has repaired its wings, and it breaks through the bars of the window, carrying Derry off into the night. Somehow, Trish is able to get downstairs and across the station quickly enough to see it framed overhead, despite how quickly it was established to fly beforehand. I would also like to point out that several of those cops had a clear shot on the creeper, but none of them took it. Real heroes, you lot. The next day, Trish's parents arrive to pick her up, who we don't see, and Giselle is in grief from what happened. I don't know how or why she stayed at the station overnight, but here we are. At an abandoned factory, the creeper has set up shop again, and has removed the entire back of Derry's head, and we can hear the film's namesake song playing. The final shot of the film shows the creeper peering through the back of Derry's head, now having his eyes in place of its previous foggy ones.
Look at the top of his head!
So yeah, this movie is a bit of a mess. Did I enjoy it? Yes. Is it a good movie? No. So how then would we go about restructuring this to make it better? Well, the concept is intriguing. So there's this creature that can only be active for a certain amount of time that needs to feed on specific humans to replenish itself. That's a good premise. However, it's undermined by a few things. As mentioned previously, the tone of the film is undercut by too many goofy and comedic moments. Am I saying that there should be no lighter scenes? Absolutely not. That would deprive the scary scenes of context. Without light, the dark loses impact, and vice versa. So let's play around with what we've got. Instead of being set in the southeast US, let's readjust this to be somewhere colder. If we're staying in the US, then let's set this in North Dakota, Alaska, or somewhere like that. Trish and Derry will instead be coming home for Christmas instead of spring break. We'll set this somewhere colder so that the creeper's disguise will make more sense. In the film, it wears clothes to make it appear to be a human at a glance, but it's also almost completely resistant to most forms of damage. It takes being hit by a car to hurt the thing, for crying out loud. This largely makes the disguise irrelevant. If it's that tanky, then it doesn't need to blend in. Let's have it be more or less as durable as the humans it consumes, but much craftier. Also, the movie makes it out to be some kind of demon, but there's another way we could take this. Now, I can't take credit for this idea. That goes to Roanoke Gaming. If you haven't watched his stuff, go do it. His theory is that the weird fins on the back of the creeper's head are a separate organism. This could be an alien or something else. But regardless, this thing needs a human host, and as parts age out of the host, it replaces them with compatible parts from other humans. Let's run with this. Now, the creeper selects specific targets, but for no discernible reason in the movie. In this version, let's have it go after those targets because it can use scent to tell whether or not the new part would be rejected by its current body. For those not aware, a complication in organ transplant surgeries is the fact that if the donor organ is too different from the recipient's original organ, the body won't recognize it and will try to attack it. This means that the creeper needs to find people whose body parts wouldn't be rejected by the current body, and that's why it wears the heavy clothes, to cover up the fact that it's a patchwork of various bodies. Setting this somewhere cold gives it an excuse to wear such heavy clothing. So instead of driving, Trish and Derry are train hopping back home. We'll have the lighter scenes mostly in the beginning, showing us that the two actually care about each other. But heavy snows delay their next departure overnight, and this is where the creeper notices them. It needs to replace its eyes, and Derry is a suitable donor. Have it stalk the two throughout the night through the town they've stopped in, and let's have them witness it murder a few applicable targets along the way. This is when the comedy stops. We need this to be taken seriously, after all. But the two don't have anywhere to stay, and sooner or later, the creeper will catch up to them. Seeing as Trish isn't an acceptable donor, it simply injures her and moves to take Derry's eyes, and Trish can fully witness the horror of what this being really is. As far as they could tell from it chasing them, this was just a psychopath. Now, though, she can see that it's a monster. But, of course, no one will believe her, and the following day, she takes the next train in grief over the loss of her brother. Is this the only way that this story could be rewritten? Obviously not, but I tried to stick with the concept as closely as I could. But let me know what you think. Do you enjoy this movie, or did you hate it as much as my friend did? How would you improve it? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would like to thank you for watching, and if you found this video entertaining or informative, leave a like if you're so inclined, and subscribe to see more. And may you all have a weapon in each hand.